So what can we as individuals do in this time of change? And this is something we started talking about in the last episode. We talked about our REBAC model, which stands for resilience, embracing change, well-being, ambiguity, and curiosity. And that's a model that we can apply to ourselves as individuals as we move forward in this. But when it comes to resilience, it's something we covered last time. And this time we're going to look at embracing change. So Yvonne, why is change so difficult?
Elena, when we talk about the brain and how the brain works effectively, in fact, resistance to change are dominated by two major attitudes. So from one side, we have biases, or how people take in, interpret, or remember information. It is as we tend to put all information into preset categories. The second point about the major attitudes is about creating shortcuts that our brain does, derived from assumptions and previous conclusions that with not enough information. In fact, the brain does not have a way to differentiate reality from imagination. Both information are processed in the same way, produce the same signals, producing feelings that are often fear or pleasure, an incentive to avoid or an incentive to do something. Often the biases and assumptions have been built by repetitive experience in our past that are heavily anchored in our subconscious. And guess what? The subconscious is an area that occupies most of our brain, and it's difficult to get rid of them unless we train our brain to support attitudes with additional information, not once or twice, but in a recurrent basis.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because change is different for everybody. And for individuals like you and I think we deal with change quite well. And it's essentially that each of us need to look at it as in a way to transform yourself, right? And change can actually transform your life in big ways. The impact of the change will depend on how you're actually processing the change. And there's a few ways that we can sort of manage it. And, we might not know when, but we should expect change to happen at some point in our lives. So number one is let's look at just cultivating perspective and curiosity. These two will really help you navigate through this more smoothly. So gratitude will help you focus on things that you have and place things in perspective in any given situation. And on the other side, we have curiosity, which will force you to look at opportunities amidst any change and look at what is the exciting thing about what the future might hold. So some of the questions you might ask: what are some things I'm grateful for? How can I take advantage of this change? What is the worst case scenario? And I think that's important. I think if we just identify the worst case scenario, we realize it's not too bad, and then we can focus on how can I overcome it if it is something challenging in the process. And next, we need to also look at how we respond. So first, we need to accept the fact that change is happening and it might actually bring new possibilities. So to respond positively, we must be open to look at things in a new light and from that different perspective. Some questions to ask yourself here is, what is the short-term immediate picture here? What am I not seeing about this change that might be beneficial for me? Where do I want to be moving forward? Who do I want to be moving forward with? What is this teaching me? What needs to change for me to adapt? And these sort of questions. By exploring these, it will give you a good overall perspective on the situation and possible responses that can be implemented. And from here, you can work on your action plan to manage the change in a more positive way. And here's just the key is to start with those daily small actions that can lead to big results in the long term.
I love what you say. Daily small actions in order to get rid any of our biases and any of our assumptions. This is great, Elena.